Hey squad, it's Brandon from the Bantu Sun. Thank you so much for joining us today. I want to start this video off by first saying thank you. We really appreciate the engagement and the support that we've been experiencing here on our growing channel. In exchange, I hope you know that we've been ahead of the curve on so many issues that are being played out in the news today. We talk about situations, scenarios, and people we watch how they move. I.e., for example, John Bolton, right? John Bolton, a major hawk, makes no sense when he talks, but this gentleman stays in the mix. He stays relevant, which means he's plugged in. And he was one of the early people that I knew kept throwing the words Japan and NATO around together. And now look at the news. You're constantly hearing more about how NATO is starting to couple themselves with Japan as they seek to move in to the East Asian Pacific Rim. Talked about Israel. Israel is going to be more aggressive as their neighbors get stronger and their enemies of their enemies are no longer enemies, i.e. Iran and Saudi Arabia. As this relationship mends, as you can see, Syria is starting to get back in good with other Arabic states. They're being accepted back into the Arab League. And as Israel neighbors become stronger, as their enemies of enemies start to become friendlier, or I'll say have less animosity towards each other, you're going to start to see a more insecure Israel, which needs to take a more muscular approach to protect their interests. And if you look at the news now with how Israel's acting in Gaza, you're seeing that play out, a more muscular and assertive Israel. Another aspect that we have coming up, BRICS. I just saw one of the major influencers on social media call out BRICS for what it is and what we called it earlier in the year, where we got a lot of flack for, goofy. They didn't use that terminology per se, but they call it what it was, a marketing ploy by Goldman Sachs. A good marketing ploy is very catchy, high on sexy, low on substance. That's BRICS. So as you start to see things play out in real time, you're going to see how ahead of the curve we are. And the reason why is because we use fundamentals. We look at geopolitical realities. And when the world, geopolitics was huge up until the early to mid 20th century, and then it started to disappear as the world became more unipolar, as America became on top, became a lot of fluff and obfuscation that occurred. But now in the 21st century, with the rise of China, the rise of India, a tripolar world, a more competitive century, geopolitical fundamentals are returning. And guess what? Our mindset, our approach, our philosophy, we're already there. We're just going to see and watch how the world try to catch up to where we already are. So thank you all for your support, and let's keep proving them wrong and getting things right. I want to call out another major note that we were ahead of the curve on. 3 months ago, 2-3 months ago, I called Turkish elections probably the biggest elections of the 21st century. And nobody was talking about it there, which surprised me because of the magnitude that I appreciated it to be. So this Sunday, or Sunday, May 14th, there's going to be an election in Turkey, and I'm going to tell you why this election is so important. I want to cover the political aspect, but I also want to get down to the raw power of what's going on in Turkey. From the political aspect, we have two competitors. President Recep Erdogan, the existing standing president, he's been in power for 20 years in one function, form, or another, starting in 2003 as prime minister, getting bumped up in 2014 as president, and serving in that precedent since. Now, Erdogan is seen as, some people will say, corrupt. A lot of people will say anti-democratic. There have been some political adversaries as well as some journalists that have definitely suffered at the hands of the current regime of President Erdogan, whether that's been arrest or other ramifications they have faced. Now, what Erdogan would say is, I'm moving Turkey forward. He's going to talk about how Turkey is coming out with their own green vehicle. They're coming out with a battery-powered EV, electric vehicle. We're going to talk about Turkey developing its nuclear energy capacity, making it an energy hub in the region as Erdogan has expanded and built strong relationships with countries all the way from West Africa to to the Persian Gulf to the Caspian Sea, as well as being a great interlocutor and middleman between Ukraine and Russia through this horrific time of the Russia-Ukraine war. Remember the grain deal, the grain stoppage that happened because of this war? And the grain that comes from Ukraine, which feeds many countries, especially those in Africa, sub-Saharan Africa. President Erdogan was able to step in and mediate a deal for the grain trade in the Black Sea. I believe, out of all the leaders, if you look at where they've gone and who they visited, which is a metric we like to follow, where do leaders take world trips to? The first leader, or the top of that priority, the world leader that President Erdogan has visited most is Vladimir Putin. He does this while still being a NATO member. So he's able to straddle both sides. He's highly competent. And that was shown in 2016 when he was able to resist the coup. Coups can be the death strokes for many nations. So any leader that can survive a coup, it shows they have staying power. They have support from the people. They have support from the military. If you don't believe me, look at places such as sub-Saharan Africa. Let's look at Sudan. How are they handling their coups? Or West Africa. Coups are the first point. They're what happened when the old power don't want to give up their strength. So what they do is they have this new leader come aboard, and then they try to get the military to turn against them. And Erdogan stay in power, as well as new up-and-coming risers, he was able to show, not in today's Turkey. So he was able to show his staying power, which is very important for a leader. Now, on the other side, you have Kemal Kılıçdaroğlu. Now, Kılıçdaroğlu, you can say, I've looked at this party. He was able to unite the 6 parties under coalition to defeat Erdogan. But when I actually look at what's driving them, it's across a broad breadth of, this coalition is diverse, we will say, across the left to the right paradigm or the bandwidth of Turkish society. And although some people can say, they're more European leaning, Erdogan liked to prod at them and said they're pro-LGBTQ in a more conservative Muslim nation of Turkey. He'll say that they're in cahoots with the PKK, the Kurdish Nationalist Party, which of course the Turkish people are against because they want strong integral borders on their nation. Even though Erdogan, being a Machiavellian politician that he is, has had some collaborations with the PKK in the past, he accused that of Kılıçdaroğlu's group. So it seems that one thing that really binds them together, the one thing that shows you who they are, is they're anti-Erdogans. They don't like the anti-democratic regime that President Erdogan ushers in. And these two adversaries have been drawing massive crowds. I've been seeing videos coming from Turkey, seas of red and white, of people coming out, hundreds of thousands of people coming out to support both of these candidates. The election polls have them running neck and neck. So it's going to be the stability and the heavy hand of Erdogan against the forward movement. It's going to be hard to say forward moving because Erdogan is 69, but Kılıçdaroğlu is 74. So, but the pro-democratic forces are really supporting Kılıçdaroğlu's ascension. So what I'll sum it up is that's the political side. And I want to sum it up on the power side. Both of these candidates are widely popular. And Erdogan especially is suffering right now because of his economic policy. He's been pushing what many call an unorthodox policy. So his country's experienced rapid inflation, and yet he continues to, or the central bank continues to push down rates. Now, what an orthodox central bank would do is they would raise rates in times of inflation. But President Erdogan's regime is convinced that if they continuously push the rates down, the inflation will basically give way towards great economic growth. So the people of Turkey are feeling the brunt of this right now. So he really is weak on that economic front, but his strength is his representation of a strong Turkey. Before Erdogan, Turkey was known for political instability, coups, and even, we'll say, mid-20th century-ish, it was hard to recover since then of this sick man of Europe. But if you look at Turkey, he has turned it into a central power, an energy hub, relevant on the world stage, and he's rebuilding what we term the Ottoman 2.0. We have a video out there referencing the reasons why of his hard work. But has he been in power for 20 years? Yeah. And if you're a citizen of Turkey and you've been seeing this man on your TV for 20 years and you think you live in a democratic nation, you're going to have issues with that. And you just want to see change for some people just for the hope of it. And some people, they just never even seen a different leader, don't know what a different leader regime is like. So that is inherent to this contest. The Erdogan anti-democratic side and Kılıçdaroğlu representing change. I wanted to finalize it as this on the power front. I don't know if you ever saw the presidential seal of Turkey. Even that name, I'm still getting used to. It used to be called Turkey. It was under Erdogan that they moved towards a more nationalist approach and a stronger name. And this is where they chose the name, a more Turkish name of Turkey. So that recent change happened in 2022, I believe. But what you see here is that if you look at the presidential seal of Turkey, you will see the center star surrounded by 16 stars. And those 16 stars represent the 6 great Turkish empires of old. There's 2 ways to see modern day Turkey. You have a European striver, modernized, more open, secular nation. Or you see it as a standard for the Turk-Mongolic people that have slowly moved across the vast swaths of Asia and sits at the footsteps of Europe. A power in its own right, which is why we outlined it in our CRIP 6, our China, Russia, India, Iran, Pakistan, Turkey, 6 nations we think in their own individual rights have great capacity to move the chains of power in the 21st century. Now, these 16 kingdoms go all the way back until the Xianu Empire, 200 years before the birth of Christ. And I think that's really the fundamental thing to look at on a nationalist front or the macro front, is who Erdogan is representing. He is representing that Ottoman power. He's representing a strong Turkey on the Anatolian Peninsula, which will spread its wings out. The Turkish people exist on this planet primarily from the southern tip of the Balkans all the way across Eurasia to Mongolia and northwest China. Now, this is a very macro and a very broad way to see things, but this has been a consistent trend of President Erdogan regime is to fulfill that position as the sun inside the center of those 16 nations, those great Turkic empires, those nations that exist in the world from Azerbaijan, Kazakhstan, Turkmenistan, etc. Now, how did that go? This story, this big story on a macro level, how does that go against what the people of Turkey feel? Their desire for a strong economy. They're tired of seeing an inflating and weakening lira day after day. And they're tired of one person controlling the political apparatus. This geopolitical power game against this political social game. That is what we're going to see play out in this election. And if Erdogan wins, I think it's going to be a significant difference than if Kılıçdaroğlu sides win. And I wouldn't wish this on any nations. But remember, Turkey was a nation of coups and political instability before President Erdogan came to power. And I hate to see what happens after he leaves power. We can all just hope for a fair democratic elections and that all sides respect the wishes and will of the people. So that's our thoughts. Let us know yours. Please comment below, like, share, subscribe if you enjoy the content. Until next time, take care. Bantu up.